If you take the igloo off of a F-16 flight simulator, pick it up, stretch it a little bit, and set it down over an entire movie theater, you create something that's called the IMAX theaters. You've essentially immersed an entire theater audience into a world that is driven by the movie. Now remember the flight simulators several years ago that were driven by a movie that was shot ahead of time? That's what you've created. So they sit there, and the key is just that the movie wraps all around them. You use a special projector, and it's everywhere. That's the key there. Well, if you take that same movie theater seat and you take it out and replace it with a ride from a theme park that's on a bunch of hydraulic actuators, then the audience feels like they're in the middle of this movie. And when the camera shoots forward and your cockpit or your seat pitches forward, you believe you're really on that thing. And they really enhance the experience. The theme parks are going through the same creation process that the military flight simulators communities went through. Now I'm going to drop some of the technology and go more into fantasy. In 1973, Gary Gygax created Dungeons & Dragons. And Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy role-playing game that allows you to take on the persona of a wizard or a warrior or an elf or any other of a thousand different fantasy creatures. It allows you to interact with other people taking on those same fantasy roles, and you have a dungeon master who's equipped with a rule book that describes how the world should work, but he's also equipped with his imagination. And he gets to decide whether you go left or right, whether this dragon can spit fire or not, whether this dragon has certain susceptibility to spells or something. And he can guide you through this custom-built world. That's a role-playing, live rehearsal kind of experience. You can do the same kind of thing at a medieval Renaissance festival. You can go out and be a lord or lady at a Renaissance festival and play out your fantasies in the garb of the time, with the weapons of the time, and with other people who want to do that same kind of live rehearsal. You can do the same thing with Civil War reenactments. Specifically, if you live in Virginia, you'll find a lot of this, where there are huge groups of people that form up military units and cities and families that reenact Civil War situations periodically. Go ahead.
You're never going to let it die.
No, it never goes away, does it? And then newer, but the same idea, is called Vampire the Masquerade. You can join a vampire clan and play out vampire confrontations from one clan to another in the city streets. Happens in large cities every evening. Now, card games. Take Dungeons & Dragons, the role-playing game, take board war games, mash them together, chop them up into a deck of cards, and you have Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering was invented only in 1993. This card game was designed specifically to allow people to play a hand of cards, some kind of game, in 20 minutes while they sat around a science fiction convention. That's what it was built for. All of the rules that you find in the rule books of a war game are printed individually on the card you're playing. And so the rule book is the card. There's additional information in compendiums and things like that, but each card tells you what to do with it. This thing took off. Millions and millions of these decks of cards are sold. Millions of dollars were made. Now, if you're a large corporation and you're wanting to get into this business, like Hasbro, how much would you pay for this little company called Wizards of the Coast that nobody ever heard of, that's invented this Magic the Gathering card game, which everybody has heard of? How much would you pay for that company? Oh, $350 million they paid for this company. The people who invented this game are rich. They hit a gold mine. And anytime one person hits a gold mine, 100 others show up to find another gold mine next door. And hundreds of these combat-like card games emerged. Some of them were literally almost a direct translation of a board war game into card format. There were cards that were the terrain, there were cards that were the assets, and you played them out. Now unfortunately, none of those became commercial successes. Most of those folded up and you can't buy them anymore. The ones that are fantasy-based, that take you into a world that's not real, into a world of the future or a world of goblins and elves, those are making money. Those have been successful. Remember the military miniatures I showed you earlier? If you go into a hobby store today, you can't hardly find military miniatures. What you will find in their place is all these little pewter figures which are designed to be Warhammer 40,000. It's a fantasy world that you paint these soldiers and monsters and buildings and caves and trees, and you build a battlefield in the future, in the year 40,000. There are hundreds and hundreds of these different pieces, and a basic starter box for this costs about $70. So the people who are buying into this game are paying serious money to get into this hobby, but they're playing essentially miniature war games. And this is where everyone's headed. This is no surprise. Where's everybody going? Star Trek the holodeck. Everybody wants a world that is so flexible that you can create anything you can imagine, but that's safe enough that you can control it so that you don't get actually killed, hurt, maimed, or otherwise insulted. Everybody wants to really create the Star Trek holodeck. How far are we away from it? I couldn't tell you. If you ask Edwin Link, how far are we from 3D real-time graphics flying past your flight simulator? He would have gone, duh. I don't know. I have no clue how far we are from that. But someday we'll have something that we equate with that. It may not act exactly the same, but we'll have something we'll say, that's the holodeck, or as close as we're going to get. Where's this going in the future? You already know the answer to that. When you get onto the web and you start playing games with people, you're going to notice that the games are a lot smarter than they've ever been before. You're going to notice that they're much more interactive than they've ever been before. You're going to notice that you have some ability to create those games. You're going to find all of this capability, and some of it is there because of what we've learned building military simulations and discrete event simulations, and those techniques are being used by the entertainment community to create the games that you're playing. You're going to go out not too long from now and buy interactive DVDs. You're going to buy a movie, but instead of it being a linear track, it's going to be something waiting for you to interact with it. It's going to want you to guide your way through the movie. You're going to decide how the movie comes out. And at some point, you may be an actor in the movie itself. Home games consoles are obvious. More and more simulation capability in home game consoles, and theme parks are also obvious. If you go to any of the modern theme parks, you'll find gigantic simulations that allow you to go in and experience their version of flight simulators, their version of giant war games, their version of wargaming. What's an excellent reference on this? Digital Illusion. Clark Dodsworth compiled, he edited this book, compiled papers from military simulation people, from theme parks, from computer games, and from the game consoles that you'll find in video arcades. And he gives a lot of really good examples of what is possible and what people are thinking about building in the future. Now, if it's really, really, really cool, it won't be in there because nobody's willing to talk about it yet. You'll just have to wait till they build it and you'll go see it pretty soon. Well, that's the summary of simulation as a form of entertainment. We've went through strategy games, war games, computer games, location-based entertainment, a lot of different applications. Some of them are very high-tech, some of them are very low-tech. But the ones I showed you, most of them are very, very profitable. That brings us to the conclusion. Can you believe you made it? You survived all the way through all 7 lectures and the introduction, and we're up to the conclusion. I want to wrap up with a couple of here's what I told you slides. There's the 7 lectures we went through, the 7 different threads of simulation, specific ways that each one is applied to entertainment, problem solving, training. Ideas from all of them are crossing over. Those boundaries are all very permeable. You find ideas being stolen from any place that they're valuable. Here's the reading list all over again. Same reading list. If If you want to know more about this topic, read any one of these books. They're a great help. If you want to know specifically, if you want to know more about military simulation, you might want to take the Military Simulation Techniques and Technologies course. It's a 3-day course that delves into the architectures and the designs of specific simulation systems. We show you how time management works, how event management works. We talk about the algorithms behind physical models, the algorithms behind behavioral models, environmental models, how multi-resolution modeling is emerging, and a little bit about verification, validation, and accreditation. Comments from students are always very welcome. If you want to make comments, please visit our website or send us an email. We'll accept comments, we'll incorporate them into the course, and we'll try to answer your questions or improve the course depending on what you've asked for. I told you I liked Alan Pritzker's closing comment there. The purpose of modeling and simulation is knowledge and understanding, not models. We build them so we'll understand the real world. If they help us do that, they're great models. If they don't, they're not great models. Now I want to invite you, those of you on the videotape, to visit our website if you want to know anything more about simulation, or to visit the website of the partners that we use in offering this material.